Welcome to the podcast of the Wildlife Trust of South and West Wales, and today I'm with Lizzie Wilberforce on our newest nature reserve. It's Carmel National Nature Reserve, not far from Llanderby in Carmarthenshire, and well, the Wildlife Trust have a long history with it, but it's a very recent acquisition, isn't it? Lizzie, perhaps you'd like to say a little bit about the history and how we were involved sort of many years ago. And
Sure, yeah. Yes, we've got quite an interesting history with this site. We only acquired it this summer under lease from Natural Resources Wales, but our involvement goes back to the 80s and 90s. It's a really important site. It's got international protection now, but it did have something called an interim development order, which is a piece of legislation from the 1940s.
Right.
So it's like a provisional piece of legislation, that gives quarrying rights. In this case, it was a quarrying interest for the limestone, and because of the nature of that legislation, it sort of overrode later legislation protecting the site. Right. So it was a real threat still, despite it being designated a triple SI, for example. This piece of sort of planning legislation basically remained relevant, and so there was a huge campaign to try and get that taken off, that threat, obviously, to sort of remove that threat to the site, which is something that the Trust was heavily involved in. And actually the West Wales Trust, as it was then in the 80s and 90s, worked with the other trusts in the UK movement and raised about £12,000 towards the legal costs of fighting it in court, which was, we played a big part, and a lot of our local members were key witnesses and things like that. People who are still involved
I was going to say, there are people who live pretty much by the reserve who are members and local group members as well, aren't there?
That's right, Matt Ridley, who's the chair of the local group in East Carmarthenshire, Neil Matthew, who works for Natural Resources Wales, was also involved, and he's on the local committee as well. So really strong ties and quite big financial commitment, for the time, for the trusts as well, to many other partners as well, obviously involved in the fight. But it did manage to overturn that order and sort of set the foundations for its site as the site to become a nature reserve.
Yeah, and I mean, you can hear this in the background, the sort of the rumble of traffic on the main road. And obviously, there is a quarry on the other side of the road, so you can hear the traffic and the noise there. So we've got this quite big contrast of what the big quarrying effect that's going on across the road and what we've got here.
That's right. I mean, what we see actually on the nature reserve is historic quarrying, and there's a good number of old lime kilns as well, obviously not been in use for a long time, and they're a really nice feature now. Add an element of sort of cultural interest to the site, because you can see how it used to be managed. The kind of mixture of wood and the hazel would have been used as part of the industrial process, and the kilns.
Been coppiced and
that's right, yes, and the old kilns, and that's really nice. But as you say, you can hear the rumble of the active quarry at the moment, and our land's actually divided into 4 parcels, split by the A road and a couple of minor roads as well. So it's a really interesting site with quite sort of distinct character in the different parts.
And one of the things you mentioned is limestone, which is quite unusual in this part of Wales, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, we as a trust, we've got a big limestone area on the South Gower coast and a lot of reserves there, and West Williamston in Pembrokeshire is limestone. But in West Wales terms, no, there's not a lot of limestone at all. It's a lot of, like Ceredigion, for example, hasn't got any limestone at all. And this is our only limestone site in Carmarthenshire now, which is one reason we were really quite keen to get involved with it, because it adds real diversity to our sort of portfolio.
Because the flora involved with limestone is quite different to, I suppose, a lot of the other reserves. So I see we've got Lily of the Valley.
That's right, yeah, Lily of the Valley and her Paris, and some quite interesting plants, and just the grassland community as a whole is quite different, and it's a beautiful place to come in early summer with the sort of spring, early summer flowers in the woodland and in the hay meadows is how they're managed, with aftermath grazing. It's a really good place to come, sort of April, May. Yeah,
we're here in December, so it's a slightly different feel to the place at the moment. I mean, it is a lovely landscape still to walk around, but it obviously doesn't have the flora that we've got going on. But just talking about the landscape, it's quite a diverse mix of things going on, isn't it? We've got the bit of woodland that you mentioned, we've got grassland as well, haven't we? And then there's sort of limestoney outcrops as well.
Yes, that's right. Yes, there's a couple of quite big old quarries which have got caves in that are used by bats as well, and the really quite sort of short grazed grassland communities around the edges of the quarries and on the outcrops, but also the limestone sort of grasslands, which are especially the unimproved grasslands, which are quite a big part. It's a big site, it's about 50 hectares altogether, but I think what's really nice is you've got this lovely intimate mix. So as you walk around, you move sort of seamlessly from grasslands into woodlands with these lovely edge habitats. It's not sort of blocky. it's a big site at 50 hectares, but it feels bigger.
Yeah,
you could get lost
wandering through, aren't you?
Absolutely,
yeah.
You could wander around it for a whole day and crisscross yourself, and it's just got a lovely feel. And the topography is brilliant. You've got lots of ridges and dips, and it's just really nice place to walk around. You come into the woodland, and again you can see the coppicing history. You've got these, some of them are quite old coppice stalls, some of it's been coppiced quite recently by the Grasslands Trust, who managed the site before we took it on. So they did a lot of sympathetic management already, and you can see the work that's been done to try and restore some of the open habitats as well.
So as you say, this is actually a really big reserve. It's the largest we've got in Carmarthenshire, isn't it?
It's about twice the size of the next largest site in Carmarthenshire. Yeah,
huge. So this makes an interesting question of how we're going to manage this site. We've got one member of staff. She's based locally. Sadly, she couldn't be here today, could she? But she's based locally.
That's right.
How are we going to do the rest? It's huge, absolutely huge.
Well, Becca Killer, our colleague who's going to be managing this site, she's the new Carmarthenshire Wildlife Trust officer. So she's going to be full-time in Carmarthenshire. We've got a bit more capacity in the county than we did before. And we've been really, really fortunate with this site that Cum Environmental and Grantscape, who are funders through landfill tax and their own funds, have supported not only the acquisition of this site, so it was bought from Tarmac using their funds and a bit of funding from Natural Resources Wales. So it's owned by Natural Resources Wales, but with their support, and then leased to us. And Grantscape, fortunately, have been willing to give us significant financial support this year as well. So they're helping to fund Becca to do a lot of the management here, and also some of the capital projects that we'll be looking to do. There's some quite big things that need doing here, like topping rushes and controlling marginal bramble on rotation, because obviously it's a valuable habitat in itself.
It's not taking over that sort of
no,
lovely landscape.
The limestone grassland and unimproved grasslands, so there's, on a site this big, even doing it on rotation, that's a significant commitment.
So some of it will be contractors, but some of it's going to come down to people power, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely, as it always does with the Wildlife Trust, and we're so lucky to always be supported by fantastic volunteers. Carmarthenshire, same as all the other counties, but being such a big site and with a really good local community in the village of Carmel itself, it would be really brilliant if we could sort of engage a bit more with the local community, and if anybody who lives in Carmel area would like to get involved, we're going to have regular volunteer groups working here. It'd be brilliant to hear from them, because it's a site that's got very strong cultural ties to the local community, and we'd really like to build on that.
Well, yes, I would imagine a lot of people who are from the area, their families could have been involved in the original sort of quarrying, the limestone management and everything. It would be really interesting to have people involved, but also have some of the histories, I suppose, of people.
Yes, again, many of them will have been involved in the fight to save it in the first place. People will have a really good historical knowledge of the site. A lot of people walk their dogs here. It's a well-used site.
You can tell that with the path, so really.
That's right, which is brilliant. Yeah, so it'd be really nice to do a bit more with that.
We are looking to raise funds for a number of things on the reserve, aren't we? And one of those things is we've got a population of dormice.
Yes, that's right. It's not very well recorded. We had there are records of dormouse chewed nuts at one end of the site. Grasslands Trust did start some work. They put in some tubes and boxes, but to really inform our management and how we go about managing it, taking into account presence of dormice as well as all the other features we're interested in, we want to do a bit more survey work, and we've obviously got to go through the exercise of collating all the information that's available about the site from partners and the Grasslands Trust from their time managing the site. So there's a lot of background work to be done, and we've got to develop our own management plan for the site. But we're very fortunate that Grantscape are sort of contributing towards a lot of this work, but to really make this a sort of flagship site in Carmarthenshire, it's going to need quite a lot of investment by us in the next 12 months. And also there was a good long period of a few months when it wasn't really receiving a lot of management between when the Grasslands Trust stopped being active and when Becca came into post and has really sort of started to take this site on in a very practical way. So there's a bit of ground to be made up in terms of work on the access and the habitat management. Not so much the woodland, but grassland habitats change quite quickly. If you're not very fast. If you're not constantly managing them. So we've got a bit of ground to make up as well. So yes, we're really looking for a bit of financial support to help us. It's such an amazing place, and to make the most of it and to be able to make it available to as many people as possible, we've really got to have a big push on it this year.
So we're stood on quite a different bit of the reserve now, aren't we? It's a lot quieter over here for a start, and we can see beautifully sort of the ridge line on the other side of a nice valley that all the way to the ridge line's ours, isn't it?
That's right, yes. So, this part of the reserve's on the west side of the Llandilo to Crosshans Road.
Yeah.
So it's a separate parcel called Pwlchydrichiad.
Yeah.
It's the largest of the parcels. And where we're standing now, we are looking down into sort of the valley, I suppose, which has got sinkholes at the bottom. So we're
quite impressive sinkholes.
Absolutely, yes. Really sort of steep-sided down to the where the water drains down into the limestone bedrock. There's a lovely band of, I suppose you call it relict coppice hazel. And then beyond that, on the other side, as the land rises again up to our boundary on the ridgeline, it's quite scrubby. So there's a lot of bracken and gorse, good for reptiles. It's south facing, so lovely and warm. And it's lovely and still down here today, and quiet. The big ridge behind us blocks us from the active quarry and from the main road.
Traffic,
so
isn't there?
it's quite a different world down here.
Yeah.
And again, you've got the mixture of the sort of grassland. Slightly different grassland in this area. We've got some devil's bit scabious and other plants in here, which you don't see so much over the other side. And it's this side of the road where we've got the dormouse record as well. So
you've got these nice sort of, they look quite joined up bits of woodland, really, sort of when you're looking around. So.
Yeah, good connectivity. Yeah, absolutely. So I think we'd look to manage all this side, assuming that the dormice are present, because if they're in the southwest corner of the reserve, they've got good arboreal connectivity to all of these blocks of hazel woodland. So, yeah, that's going to be an important feature going forward. And some of these old coppices are just brilliant. You've got old sort of blackthorn scrub as well, and there's some quite unusual lichens on some of these trees as well. So we're really lucky to be working on this site. I think it's going to be an adventure.
Well, I mean the dormouse populations, there's a decent dormouse population in Carmarthenshire anyway, isn't that, relatively speaking, that we know of?
Yes, and we are tending to find more where we look as well. They're turning up in more, should we say, less textbook habitats.
Of course, because they don't read the books.
No, they don't
care about that.
No.
Yeah, so it would be really exciting if we could find. So we need the money, obviously, that we're looking to raise for this site on the appeal to do some of the survey work here to see what dormouse populations are here. So we can.
That's right. Yes, I mean your management decisions always hang on what you value about the site and how good your knowledge is of what's here. So the first rule, we're lucky that there's a really good baseline for this site available from partners and people who've done a lot of work professionally and on a voluntary basis on this site. But the quality of your management does depend on the quality of your knowledge of what's here. So that's something we're going to have to work hard on.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're looking to raise around £10,000, aren't we? Is that about right?
Yeah, £10,000 would be great. It would be a huge help.
Yeah, and that money would go into things like this dormouse work and other work as well. So that we're looking at quite a lot of stuff rush in front of us here, aren't we? So that's going to take quite a lot of work to get out.
That's right. It would match fund the money that we have available already and enable us to do some extra work, and so anything from a couple of pounds towards gloves for volunteers, because we're going to have more volunteer work parties in Carmarthenshire now than we've ever had before, and very regularly on this site, right up to we'll be looking into the thousands of pounds to look at some of the infrastructure and produce some of our own materials, because obviously this is a new site to us. We've got no sort of interpretive material that we can help with members of the public that help us to shout about this amazing new site that's now the Wildlife Trust. So we really that money would help us match what we've already got to really deliver all these things, through from supporting volunteers through to habitat management to data gathering and to actually managing the reserve infrastructure as well.
People could just donate by going to the website?
Yep, you can go to the website. There's full instructions on how you can donate on the website and contact numbers, or you can just phone the Trust headquarters as well, and we can take donations over the phone. So it's very quick and easy, and it will make a huge difference to this site.
Lovely, thank you very much, Lizzie.
Thank you.